Hello, Sister Dickey. Thanks for joining us today in a pre-recorded interview for the Harlem YSA Award. Really appreciate your time.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Um, so to start off, I wanted to ask you. You joined the church in the early '90s, like maybe late '80s. Um, Tell us about your time, kind of in the Lincoln Square building ward, and also a bit about the group that was coming down from Harlem.
Okay, well, as far as Lincoln Center was concerned, which is where I started, I was there for maybe 7 years, 6 or 7 years, and we just came to Harlem. But before I joined the church, I was going through some, problems myself and everything. I once was thinking about becoming a nun, and I was at a convent where they had girls and everything, and I wasn't your normal obedient nun, I guess you could say. I was more like playing with the girls all the time. And there was this Mother Superior. She didn't like that, and she would talk to the bishop about it. And I was a novice at the time. And when it was time to take my final vows and everything, I was talking to the bishop, and he was asking me questions. And one of the things he asked me was, was I really happy to be there? And I said yes. And he got quiet for a few minutes. And then he suggested that I come back into the world. And if I still felt the way I did, I was always welcome to come back. Actually, what he was telling me to do is get out. But that's the way I felt anyway. And I left with an attitude. And I didn't think about going back or anything like that. And before I knew it, I started hanging out in the village with the hippies at the time. And I liked being around them and everything. So that's where I would go every single day to Washington Square Park and everything. And I was pretty obedient and everything. I didn't do drugs or anything like that. And they pretty much called me Philosopher Polly because I was always getting on their back about things that they were doing. But they loved me anyway. But as the time went on, I did get to the point where I started having my children out of wedlock and everything. I would get close to marriage and everything, and then all of a sudden, I decided I didn't want it, so I would just break off the relationship and everything. And in all honesty, I felt like I was being punished because I didn't go back to the convent. So I was struggling with my children, alone and everything. And I grew up here in Harlem and everything. And when I got old enough, I left Harlem and I said I would never come back. But as you can see, I am here and everything. But the thing is that through the trials and everything that I was going through, like I said, I felt like I was being punished and everything. And I was moving around with my children, trying to make things better. And instead of it getting better, it felt like it was getting worse. And there was a one Tuesday, only one time I remember distinctly. I never saw it on television before, but this one particular time, it was like a dark, gloomy day. They spoke about the Book of Mormon. And I didn't know what the Book of Mormon was or anything, but they mentioned it and they gave a telephone number and mentioned that you would receive it within 2 or 3 days and no one would call and no one would visit. I called that number and like they said, no one would call a visit, but I did get the Book of Mormon. And I did not recognize any of the names. I didn't know any of the stories, and I had no idea what this book was about. And I would try to read it over and over again. It just wasn't working. But for some reason, I started carrying it around with me everywhere I went. And I was in the Bronx at this particular time. And I thought that maybe if I moved, maybe things would get better. So I moved to Brooklyn and I met the manager of my building and became friends with her. Well, I thought she was my friend. And there was one morning that me and my children were home and she came up to the apartment and I had a wallet on the table. And when she came in, the wallet disappeared. And I told her to put it back. She said she didn't have it, and I called her a liar. I said, the only people that's been here is me and my children and you. And the wallet was there when you came through the door, so that means that you have it. And if you don't give it back, I'm going to throw you through the window. That's the only way you're going to get out of here. That's the way I felt. And my children knew that I would do it. And they started screaming, don't. And I looked at her and I looked at them and I told her to get out. And I told my children to lock the doors that I was going to go for a walk. I didn't know where I was going. I just needed to get out. And I'm walking, and the next thing I know, I go into a realtor's office. Why, I don't know. But I went in and I started talking to him, and I started singing my life story to him. And he didn't say anything. He just let me do it. And then after I finished talking, he said, I have just a place for you. And I said, well, give me the address so I can go. And he said, I'll do better and I'll take you myself. And I never went with any stranger, and especially in a car before, but for some reason I trusted him. And he said, let me lock up and then we'll go. I did that and we went to his car. I got in and we started driving. He didn't tell me where we were going or anything. He just kept driving. And I'm looking around thinking, if you think you're going to try something, think again, because I'm not like that. And he just kept going and going. And then I noticed that we were in lower Manhattan, meaning that we were coming uptown. I still didn't know where I was going, but I let him, do it. The next thing I know, we're here in Harlem and we went to 133rd Street, right off Lenox Avenue. And there was a firehouse there. That firehouse was the reason I fell in love with it, especially with a Chuck 30 and everything. Anyway, he drove me there. We got to the middle of the street and he said, this is it. But I'm going to tell you, they're doing renovation work right now and everything. And only the top floors are completed. But if you want to, you can talk to the workers and they'll explain everything that's going on and what you can do. And if you still want to go, you can move in. And I did what he told me and I moved in. I was like on the top floor. I don't remember if it was the 5th or 6th floor, but it was the top floor. But when I moved in, all of a sudden the workers went on strike. And while they're on strike, the building is falling apart pretty much and everything. I was on the top floor. Then I went to the floor underneath and I kept going down, down, down. And I just didn't know what to do. I ended up on the 2nd floor. That's the day that I sort of, I guess you could say, advertisement for the Book of Mormon and everything. And I called and everything. But the thing is, though, I don't know, my youngest daughter, she would go everywhere with me. I don't know if she thought I was suicidal or what, which I'm not, never have been, never will be.
Mhm.
But she felt the need to go with me everywhere, so I let her go. And there was this one particular afternoon again, dark and gloomy. We're at the laundromat, and I realized I didn't have change for the dryers. I had to go back to the apartment. We went back to the apartment, and I'm still complaining and everything, and she's just listening like a good little girl. And all of a sudden, there's a knock on the door. And I had lost the Book of Mormon when I went to Brooklyn. I don't know if I lost it on the truck, left it in the apartment. I don't know what happened. It just disappeared. And then the next thing I know, when I'm talking to my daughter, the knock on the door came. And I opened the door and I saw these two guys standing there. and white shirts and ties. And I told my daughter, you see what I'm talking about? I don't have enough problems. Now I got the lawyers standing here. Then I looked down it and I saw the Book of Mormon and I screamed, I know that book. And they asked me how I knew it, and I explained what happened. And one of them said, well, can we come in and explain to you? And I said, no, I had to go out again. I had to come. I explained to them I was at the laundromat, but they looked at each other like, here we go again. But then one of them, he decided to ask me if they could come, come back again. And I told him yes. So he made an appointment for that Saturday at 12 o'clock. That Saturday morning, I had gone to the supermarket to do some shopping, and it was a hot day that morning. And when I'm going back to the building, I happen to see them standing on the corner going towards 7th Avenue. And I walked over to them and I asked them if they were there to see me. And one of them looked at me. His name is Elder Jackson. He looks at me and he says, no. Okay, I got an attitude. And I went back to my apartment. Decided I had three entrances to that apartment. I went to the first, that's where the kitchen was. And I went in and I'm putting the groceries away and I'm slamming doors and slamming cabinets and everything and crying at the same time, which I didn't do. I didn't cry, but I was crying that morning. And then all of a sudden at 12 o'clock exactly, the doorbell rang and I opened the door and they were standing there. And I told them, I thought you weren't here to see me. And Elder Jackson said, we weren't at the time, but we are now. So that's how I got to meet the missionaries. And from that day forward, I've been with the missionaries, I got
Hmm.
baptized and everything. But the way I look at it, when I first saw that advertisement, I feel like Father was looking at me and he wanted me to know, that he was there for me. But at the same time, I had to suffer the trials that I did so that once the missionaries came to me, I would be ready for them. That's what I truly believe in everything. So it didn't take too long before I was baptized, and I've been with the church ever since. And I love the church, and yes, I'm very protective of the missionaries. Always
Yeah.
been protective. They're like my children,
Yeah.
really. They've always been there for me no matter what, with my kids, with I go in and out of the hospitals, everything, they were always there for me.
Hmm.
And I even had, mothers call me and thank me for being a substitute mother to them and everything, which I love. I didn't think I was doing that, but that's what it was, And when I got baptized, we were at Lincoln Center and everything. Like I said, I was there, I guess, for maybe 6 or 7 years.
Hmm.
And then all of a sudden they made this announcement about us being moved to Harlem. They didn't say specifically who, they just mentioned it. And the next thing I know, it was us. The, the family, what I guess you could say, that was moved to Harlem. There was a lot of protesting and people were upset and everything, because, including me, because I didn't want to come to Harlem.
Hmm.
I, I did
Even
what,
though even though the people who would be in this new branch lived in Harlem, they wanted to stay down in Lincoln Square.
yeah. And I think, one of the reasons also is because at that time, Harlem was in a great place. We were here, but didn't like it. So it was kind of nice to be able to get out for a little while. I guess that was the attitude.
Hmm.
And when they said that we were coming to Harlem, no, we did not like it or anything.
Hmm.
But the thing is when I got baptized, even though the missionaries asked me if I would be baptized, and I said yes, I was really saying yes to Father. And I was not going to lie to Father and everything. So we came to Harlem and ended up in Sylvia's also. That's the restaurant. And no, we did not like it. One reason is because we had to be there at 9 o'clock in the morning exactly. And when we went in, we had the remnants from the night before, the alcohol and everything. It just was not good. And a lot of the members, they decided they were going back downtown.
Mm.
And they were told if they went downtown, they, wouldn't be treated, as a member, they couldn't, ask for, things and things,
Like they wouldn't be a member of the congregation down there.
right,
Yeah.
right. They would just be there. But they went anyway. Everything. I stayed. Like I said, I made a promise to Father, so I stayed and everything. And no, it wasn't fun. But in the meantime, also the missionaries that were here, there, they were really hard workers and everything. And before you knew it, we had a lot of members to the point where we had to find another place to go. And we bought this building from Jehovah's Witnesses that were there around the corner. We bought the building from them. And the missionaries, they were still being busy bringing people in. And it was like a real family. We had all kind of activities every single week. The children loved it. Everybody loved it. And there was these two sisters. I couldn't remember their names, but when I talked to you the other night, when you left, their names popped in my head.
Mm.
It was sisters, and what was it now? Jenny and Fanny. That was their name.
Okay.
Jenny and Fanny, and they were regulars and everything until they went home to Father and everything. They were regular people, and we had a few more that were regulars. Not that many. I think maybe they were 12 of us all together, I guess.
And
But
when you
under the
say when you say that 12, do you mean people who are kind of like born and raised in Harlem?
yeah, pretty much, yeah, and everything. But a lot of them, like I said, they went back to Lincoln Center, and a lot of them they moved to Utah, and I guess a lot of them became inactive because we tried to find them, me and the missionaries, and we couldn't find them. And if we did find someone, they had some reason why they weren't coming back. Like some would say, they love the church, but it's too transient because people keep coming and going. That was a big problem also.
Mm-hmm.
It was bad enough that the missionaries would come and go out of your life, but then you had a lot of members that would do the same thing. And I guess they couldn't handle that. And I could understand it because it would hurt me also every time, people would leave. But at the same time, I would always tell myself, well, they wanted me to be here, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be here. So I stayed. I became a state missionary, so I was able to help find members also and bring them in to the extent where the branch was too crowded. That's what
Mm-hmm.
we had to move and everything, and that's how the church came into Harlem, pretty much.
Do you mind if
No,
I ask one question about that period, kind of in like the building that you bought from Jehovah's Witnesses?
uh-huh.
How did the feeling of the branch kind of change from when you guys first started at Sylvia's to when you were kind of overcrowded and ready to move to the
What's the,
the new building? Like how did the branch kind of feel as it changed?
well, I guess, when we were in the branch, like I said, we were more like a huge family. That's what it was. When we moved into the church, I don't know if it's because it was bigger, there's more space or anything, but slowly but surely everybody started spacing out. and not coming in.
Hmm.
And it seemed like every time we got, a new member, they would become friends with, one of the other members or something. And then they would move out, they would disappear. And I guess the people they couldn't deal with it, so there's still some members. There's one that I was talking to not too long before we stopped, meeting at the church itself and everything. And she was telling me how she loves the church and everything, but people coming and going, she just can't handle that and everything, But the thing is, even though she made that statement, she would continue, staying. She told me one time that she was going to go to Dykeman, the church on Dykeman, and see how it was up there.
Hmm.
And I told her it's going to be the same thing up there that it is here. And she thought about it. So she said that, yeah, that's true too. So, so she stayed. So as far as the originals there, is myself, which I'm the oldest of all of them.
Hmm.
I can't say age, but pretty much anyway. And then there's maybe 5 or 6 of us that are the originals, from Lincoln Center.
Wow,
Everybody else,
that are still there at the ward today.
right. Everybody else is new, brand new. No, we've had a lot of people come in to visit, and they say how they like the church and how we do things, and they want to be baptized, but then they disappear. And unfortunately, I guess that's the way it is, because I've even told people myself that when you make that commitment, to be baptized, even though I know you love the missionaries, you can't help but love the missionaries and everything. The fact of the matter is, you're making this promise to Father. You have to understand that. Now, there was 2 ladies that I was helping the sisters about 2 weeks ago. We were talking to 2 ladies, viral and everything,
Hmm.
doing the scriptures and everything, and they loved it. They liked the fact that we were doing it and everything. But then one of them, she said her brother was in an accident and he was in the hospital. He had to be flown into a hospital. So she wasn't really focusing the way she should have. And I understood that. And then there's the other lady also, I guess, they were friends and everything. And then the sisters asked them if they would be willing to be baptized on the 2nd of September. And one of them, she was like hesitant and everything. She thought about it. And then finally, she said yes. But I could tell it wasn't going to happen the way she, answered and
Yeah.
everything. So the following week, we tried to get in touch with them. They said they weren't interested anymore
Hmm.
because,
It's
and
it happens. It happens, But that's part of the work and involved in sharing the gospel. A lot of people come close, and it doesn't quite work out. But Sister Dickey, we're just about out of time. But thank you so much for sharing your story, and thank you for the leadership and love and liveliness that you have brought to the church here in Harlem. And you really have been a leader here, and that I think as long as the church is in Harlem, you'll be remembered, and we'll be grateful for you. So thanks very much for your time, and maybe
well,
we'll
thank
reach out, and I'm
you.
sure we'll get to talk more in the future. But thanks very much.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. All right.
Okay.
Well, have a good one.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Bye bye.
Bye bye.